Hello everyone, I hope you all doing good and ready to listen as we tackle to you the modern and postmodern architecture. Modern architecture is based on the developments brought about by the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century and became widespread in the first half of the 20th century. It is an innovative architectural style that seeks solutions appropriate for the needs of its age, understanding of art, and building technology. After World War II, Philippine modern architecture began to develop in 1945. The first modern buildings were created in the early 20th century. Many notable architects and architectural instructors embrace modern architecture, but very few modern structures were constructed in the first half of the century.
Le Corbusier, aka Charles Edward Generic Gries, was a pioneer of contemporary commercial architecture. He and other modernists aimed to make the most of the available space as the globe moved toward urban living. He concentrated on how to create a structure whose design resulted solely from its purpose, as opposed to many commercial structures that were constructed with an eye towards a specific aesthetic, such as how they fit into the area or paid respect to European fashion. Form follows function best describes this approach to architecture, and it may be seen in action in one of Le Corbusier's design. Look at Rio de Janeiro's Gustavo Capanema Palace.
Every modern architect has their own unique style and technique. However, there are few key features of modern design to look out for when trying to spot a modernist building. 6 defining characteristics of modern architecture, namely clean lines or clean minimal lines, use of glass, flat roof, open floor plans, asymmetrical designs, and modern materials. Clean minimal lines. Modern design is characterized by clean lines with minimal or devoid of ornamentation and have a consistent, smooth texture. Use of glass. A very generous use of glass, walls and large windows of glass, which allows a significant amount of natural light into the interior. Flat roof. Several modern homes and buildings emphasize low horizontal structures and broad overhangs. Open floor plans. Since modern architecture focuses on form over function, architects sought to include large, spacious floor plans with dining and living spaces that flowed into one another. It also includes a relationship to the outside environment, how buildings would relate to the natural landscape surrounding them. Asymmetrical designs. Large, smooth shapes and asymmetrical compositions that were cleanly planed and lacked any additional decoration. Modern materials. Materials in modern home or building include steel, concrete blocks, iron, and glass. More conventional building materials like wood, brick, and stone were used in more straightforward ways to show off their natural beauty.
Postmodernism emerged in the 1960s and 1970s as an architect-driven critical reaction and response to the dominant modern architecture of the mid-20th century, which postmodern architects perceive as placeless and rigid, constructed from modern-look materials such as steel and glass, and lacking in ornament and emotion. Postmodernism bloomed during the 1980s economic boom and persisted throughout the 1990s, leaving behind a succession of loud, bold, genre-defying architectural monuments. Thus, by the 1980s, the architectural idiom of the Philippines had been swept by the tide of postmodernism, a type of bringing life back to the romance of classical architecture.
Other architects such as Michael Graves, a former Le Corbusier disciple, thought this aesthetic was constricting and lifeless. Skyscrapers and apartment structures like Gustavo Capanema Palace were commonplace at the end of Le Corbusier's life and frequently stood out as eyesores against the local flavor of the communities they bordered. Graves began infusing whimsy and beauty into his projects after rejecting the notion that function should be the primary consideration in design. He created structures that were distinctive and different from the soulless aspect of contemporary architecture or modern architecture by using facades, asymmetry, and ornamental finishes. Although many people thought these designs were strange or unattractive, he aimed to create structures that were distinctive and made reference to local culture rather than universal and cosmopolitan.
With so many modifications on postmodern architecture, the standards for what defines postmodern work are somewhat imprecise. Thus, it rejected the idea of following a set of rules and instead motivated artists to be creative and extravagant with their designs. So these are the five characteristics of postmodern architecture: contradiction, asymmetry, humor, fragmentation, and complexity.
Contradiction. Postmodernism was a direct reaction to the constricting methods of contemporary design, such as geometric shapes and simple designs. Asymmetry. Asymmetry's ability to draw attention and produce distinctive buildings that stood out made it the foundation of the postmodern movement. Postmodern designs frequently featured sloping pillars, walls, and opposing structures, which provided a fresh viewpoint on what it meant to be a functional building. Humor. Throughout the postmodern era, notably in the United States, humor and camp, an ironic trend of garish art that was regarded as beautiful, were used interchangeably. Fragmentation. Postmodern architects are renowned for designing fragmented structures that, despite being united as a single structure, appear to be numerous separate structures with varying applications. Complexity. Complexity can be used to describe all modern works, as the integration of a variety of colors, textures, shapes, and themes construct the framework of these unique buildings. Basically, all postmodern works can be characterized as complex since they integrate a wide range of hues, textures, shapes, and themes to create their distinctive structures in order to depart from modernism's uniformity and create a new style of design.
By adhering to the maxim form follows function, which states that constructions are awarded their aesthetic quality based on their utility, modern architecture may be recognized. This concept is rejected by postmodern architecture, although no precise alternative is provided. As we shall see, postmodernism wants a more distinctive appearance that stresses individuality and regional character, whereas modern architecture is a component of a global aesthetic that is homogeneous and purposeful.